Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of TCG So today, I am delighted because we finally have a tournament from South Korea. This is the very first time we have ever had Korean results, and ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely delighted to be able to tell you what's winning Pokemon tournaments in Korea. Now, to give you a little bit of context here, the format they're playing in is essentially up to Dark Order. So we do have the Jirachi and Zapdos legal. We do not have the Tag Team GXs legal. So it's the tournament that Japan has been playing in up to now. So it's kind of half of Team Up. Things like I say, Zapdos and Jirachi, they are there, they are legal, we can play them. But the Tag Team GXs, as they stand at the moment, not being played. There we go. So with all of that borne in mind, here's a lovely pie chart given to us by the lovely Code64 on Twitter, or is actually shared by Bubblecoin, but it was Code64 that shared it with us. Tweeted out on Christmas Day, which makes me rather happy. And you can see that there were two decks that really did jump above any of the others in terms of success and how good they were. And you probably shouldn't be surprised at this stage. The number one deck really is Zapdos Jirachi. Now let me explain. Zapdos Jirachi number one with 26% of the top cut. Our friend Zoroark is there with 29% of the top cut. But we have four different Zoroark variants. The biggest variant there, we've got the one with Lycanroc. That's the fairly standard one. It counters other Zoroark decks because of stuff like Claw Slash. And you've got Bloodthirsty Eyes to drag Pokemon in the active, while Zoroark hits a decent amount of damage. But we also see Zoroark played with a bunch of other stuff. So we've got Zoroark Alolan Ninetales, using Alolan Ninetales' ability to search out any item cards we might like, giving you that extra consistency. We see it with Greninja, which is not a deck we see very often, taking advantage of Frogadier and Greninja to drop extra damage counters, and then Zoroark to smash and clean up. The whole point of this deck is that Zoroark doesn't quite do enough damage, so Greninja is essentially coming in to fill the gap. And then we see Zoroark Gyarados very much like we saw the Schultz brother winning in Harrogate. And I'll pop a link to the video where we looked about that in the description. But essentially, Gyarados from Burning Shadows does 50 damage for each Magikarp in the discard. You play it with Ditto Prism Star, and the theory is you get one Gyarados with 3 Magikarp in the discard hitting for 150. That goes down, and then you've got the Ditto Gyarados, which can then hit for 200 with 4 Magikarp in the discard. Though if your opponent is playing Blacephalon, you only need 2 Magikarp in the discard, and it becomes a great counter, covering one of your worst matchups. Speaking of Blacephalon, we do see Naganadel Blacephalon coming in as the third biggest deck with 10% of the metagame. We've seen that before. And then Rayquaza coming in with 10% of the metagame as well. And it probably shouldn't surprise you at this stage that we are talking Rayquaza with Vikavolt. It's still a good deck. It's kind of been shown to be kind of a tier 2 deck. It's not quite up there with some of the others, but then again, we saw 10% of the metagame, at least in the top 32. I should mention it's the top 32, but they've only actually got 31 results because, well, someone didn't report the results, which is a little bit rude, to be honest. It's hurting us. We then see 6% with Glaceon. Now, I don't know exactly what one of them was, but I can tell you that the 9th place finisher was Glaceon Vaporeon. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the EVs were legal for this tournament. And I suppose I should mention that Jolteon GX was played in at least some of the decks that were playing Zapdos Jirachi. And what we see here is Glaceon sitting in the active, stopping your opponent using any abilities, and then Vaporeon sitting on the bench healing. I've done a video about this deck, shockingly enough. I will pop a link to it in the description. And then we see a whole bunch of other decks coming in with a little bit of representation. We see an Ultra Necrozma Malamar deck. Malamar accelerates energy. Ultra Necrozma does a whole bunch of smashing. We see a Gardevoir deck, which was played with Alolan Ninetales, and Gardevoir and Alolan Ninetales, they make good partners. Firstly, Alolan Ninetales lets you search out that rare candy, and it evolves from Alolan Vulpix, which lets you search out those Pokemon. It basically guarantees you the turn 2 stage 2. And to be honest, if you can get Alolan Ninetales or Gardevoir without, then you can use Alolan Vulpix to search for the other two, Alolan Ninetales to grab 2 rare candy, and actually get 2 turn 2 stage 2s, which is redonk. But then because you're a fairy deck, you can use Alolan Ninetales, 70 to the active, 30 to the bench for 2 energy, or the GX attack that for 2 energy gets a guaranteed 1-hit KO on an Ultra Beast. That sounds quite nice to me. That sounds like a decent attacker. We also saw a little bit of top cutting for Garboda here. Garboda is our old friend that does 20 damage for each item card in your opponent's discard pile. And we did see Garboda here played with Buzzwole GX. Good low energy attacker. And with Weavile, good low energy attacker. It's just a nice deck that basically punishes you with consistent damage for low energy, and then you play a bunch of item cards and your opponent punishes you with Garboda. It's also really nice because both the Weavile counter your opponent's abilities, so if they have the audacity to go ahead and play abilities, great. You've got them. I should mention though, unfortunately, this one only played the Ultra Prism Weavile, which did 50 damage for each ability, not the one that does 60 damage to each ability. We see one copy of Lost March here. I mean, look, Lost March is great. It's doing well over here. It's doing all right in Japan. It's not quite the kind of crushing the format deck some were expecting, but it's seeing consistent top cuts really around the world now. 1 grass energy, 20 damage for each of your Pokemon in the Lost Zone. You've got Skip Bloom to get yourself set up, and it really is a very good deck. Don't know if it's real top tier yet, but it's very nice. We see a Vespiquen deck, and this will officially begin my search for that deck list. Unfortunately, I don't have a deck list. We've only got one legal Vespiquen at the moment, so it must be the Vespiquen from Lost Thunder that does 120 as long as you've got 5 grass Pokemon on your bench. I want to know that deck. I want that deck list. Hopefully somebody somewhere will be able to hook me up. I will certainly be trawling for it. And then one Tapu Koko spread deck. Tapu Koko, you play it with Latios, you spread a whole bunch of damage around, and then would you believe it, in comes Tapu Lele to move the damage counters around. It's not the first time we've ever seen this deck. It is a very good, very effective deck, and it keeps doing well. And I think it's here to stay at this stage. I think that's fair to assume. The lovely folks over at limitlesstcg.com/tournaments have got us the top 16 bracket. Here's what it looks like. We can see that the tournament was won by Blacephalon Naganadel, and we see that the top, well, kind of 8 really, there were 4 Zoroark decks. Zoroark's still there, but we did see a 9th place finish from Glaceon Vaporeon. We see a 7th place finish from Lost March, 15th place finish from Gardevoir. We see a few decks hanging around. I want that Vespiquen list, ladies and gentlemen. I have no idea if I'll be able to find it. I'm going to be honest, I'm not used to trying to trawl for Korean deck lists, but if it is out there and I can find it, you can guarantee we'll have a video about it. And given that just the other day I showed you a Zera Aura promo, which, I mean the artwork at least, it's been seen in Japan, but the artwork was exclusive or at least first released in Korea, I'm loving the fact that we're getting Pokemon news out of Korea. For too long it's been North America, Europe and Japan. It's nice to add some new countries to the mix. I hope it keeps coming, quite frankly. So there we go. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what is winning in Korea. This is the part of the video where you tell me what you're surprised about, what you think is cool, give me some thoughts, and of course, if you know where to find that Vespiquen deck list, please let me know. Go nuts, ladies and gentlemen, but please do remember the most important rule as always. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk Transformers and Keyforge and other cool stuff. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.